asshole down through the castles of the vampire dream. And in old Frankenstein I am, mean man in a can. We're down on that lonesome road where nobody goes. It's a terrible thing. It's just a piece in your heart, you know. It's just a piece in your heart that you're playing like a part of another world, someplace, somewhere. As if there was another dream way beyond what you seen, moving right in your mind right there. You got Christ on twice, you got the rivers on boats, and then you're floating down the stream. Yeah, you're floating like an old goat on Bill Brogan's goat. Was feeling mighty fine in the rain. Bill Brogan's on go and it's tied to the railroad train. He coughed him up a can and he threw away the man, and then he flagged him on down again. All round and round again, round and round again. Once on a friend, like a brother coming in, and then I'm back on my round again. All down, people all down on the down. You know what is down on the slide. Everyone told you, and everyone told you, and everybody told a goddamn lie. They were lying in the teeth and laying in the graves, way down in the devil's hole. He was down with the soul, where you do what you're told, or you die and you never get back again. Yeah, on the riverboat ride down to the world. You say what you are, like you said something to some dollar bill or somebody on somebody else's star. You was swinging and banging and swinging and danging and riding Harley on the chop. Welcome. That was a little bit of Charlie Manson. I've been trying to avoid this. And there just is no getting around this topic. Appreciate everybody joining me today. I'm going to set up a couple of more things and let everyone come in and get a little better settled, because there's a lot of information on this. And if you're not familiar with him, I'm going to add some stuff. So this is from some research that I've recently encountered. So I'm going to pep up the music just a little bit and give you about 3.5 minutes to get settled in. So you can probably hear me sing in the background. There with nothing on, with a goofy little grin and a platinum blonde. I can't believe you do that on our bed. I got a pistol and I got a bullet and a pissed off finger just itching to pull it. The only thing keeping me from losing my head is I hate stripes and orange ain't my color. And if I squeeze that trigger tonight, I'll be wearing one or the other. There's no crime of passion worth the crime of fashion. The only thing saving your life is that I don't look good in orange and I hate stripes. Whoa. 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 I can fall in love with a prison guard. I can sell cigarettes
vets in the prison yard don't think hard time would be that hard on me. I could pick up trash on the side of the road, but I'd die if I saw someone I know ain't the chains. It's the clothes that stop me. I hate stripes, and orange ain't my color. If I squeeze that trigger tonight, I'll be wearing one or the other. There's no crime of passion worth the crime of fashion. The only thing saving your life is that I don't look good in orange, and I hate stripes. Oh, and one shot ain't worth a bad blood shot. God knows I wouldn't be caught holding up a number on the whole town, staring at the picture in the paper of me wearing stripes. All right, we got that out of the way. All right. It being the month of October, I've kind of been on a roll with exposing a few true crime cases that a lot of us are familiar with and some of us are not. And these case files, we wouldn't have them if somebody didn't commit an act of violence. Let me get my chat set up so I can read chat while I'm doing this. You ever heard the old term guilty by association? Well, I learned a few things about being guilty by association. Seems to be an ongoing trend. I've only got 2 people watching, so somebody else must have went live. That's all right. That's perfectly fine. So somebody else must have went live. You know, like I said, I was trying to avoid getting into the Charles Manson case file, but something just struck me a little odd after listening to some of the other stuff going on. And, you know, sometimes people just find themselves in awkward situations. And so I got to doing a little research on what does guilt by association mean in legal terms. Because I put Charles Manson's mugshot just right before he passed away as my avatar today. He was a cult leader. He was projected to the world as a very bad individual. Now, I ain't saying he wasn't. I'm just saying that's the projection. So he had a lot of followers. And with him having a lot of followers and a lot of people that was tuned in to what he was saying and what he was preaching and what he was teaching, these people did a lot of things because whether it was their own decision or not, they were greatly influenced by the persona of someone they looked up to. Charles Manson had a very difficult life. I mean, from today's society and looking into the profiles of these criminals, each and every one that I've shared with what I've put on YouTube, each one of them has an established consistency of some type of overexposure to abuse or a victim of abuse or a severe mental illness that resulted in them being a reflection of abuse. That's probably a good way to say that. So I have been watching documentaries, interviews, and since his death, there's been a lot of interviews with very well-known investigative reporters released. And I've got a few of them tagged up here, but there's one in particular that I wanted to share with you that was done by Diane Sawyer. I think it was in the early 90s. But he goes into a little bit more detail with her on his lifestyle and where he was born, what he was born into, who raised him, what influences he had in his life. But I'm going to break it down just a little bit more. Just in case I get struck and this goes private, YouTube, whatever, I've got some side notes to share with you. Let's go back to being guilty by association. Well, it's a term that refers to an idea that somebody's going to be declared guilty of a crime just because they're simply associated with an individual or group of individuals that has an established truth in actually committing a crime or multiple crimes. So the meaning exists not because of proof so much more, but because of an individual's assumption. Now I want to clarify that term. I've been listening to other creators' content. I've been listening to people coming up on others' panels. I've been watching some of the comments being made in chats. There is a huge difference between the true definition of the word assumption and alleged. You can say alleged or allegedly all day long. But the true definition and the true meaning, and when someone takes their thoughts, someone applies truth and fact to their opinion, it's an assumption. It's not an allegation. I can accuse somebody of something all day long, but it's not in my own moral and ethic to just out and out accuse somebody of something unless there is some kind of established truth in an assumption. Now, I may talk out my head sometimes, but when it comes to getting and making stuff public, I try real hard. We're all to err's human, but I try really hard not to just point fingers and calling somebody out. I have to be careful about how I word things because I don't want somebody to say, you lied on me. No, I didn't lie on you. I just presented what I was understanding. So the assumption definition means a thing that is accepted as truth or as certain to happen without proof. Or the action of taking on power or responsibility. Or the arrogance of presumption. Now, you want to get into religion and religious beliefs, an assumption under certain belief systems is actually a reception. It's a type of celebration or a type of doctrine that's in certain things. So to go back to the legal term of assumption, so it's an opinion or a thing that is accepted as true or certain to happen without proof. Okay. If I see a young person walking on a sidewalk and their shoes are untied and I verbally state, if he don't tie his shoe real soon, he's going to fall flat on his face. So I've just assumed that he's going to have an accident if he don't take the time to stop and tie his shoe. Or kind of like running with a pair of scissors. If you don't stop running with those pair of scissors, you're going to fall and hurt yourself. Well, I just made an assumption. But now, an allegation would be, finding somebody on the ground with a pair of scissors sticking out of their chest, and you allege that they were running. See the difference in the description and the definition? So now that that's out of the way. So, an example of guilt by association is the assumption that an example would be a group of teenagers, like I did with the shoes, like I did with the running scissors. Well, if you've got a group of teenagers at this party, you're going to assume that they're going to be drinking if there's alcohol there. But it doesn't mean that everybody's going to be drinking at that party. You're always going to have that little group of knuckleheads. That's part of life. Things are going to happen. Then you've got the idea of guilt by association, or association fallacy. Well, the term fallacy means to a mistaken belief, especially based on an unsound argument. Well, we've already proven that in explaining what it means. And then under criminal law, you have guilt by association being defined as accessory to a crime. Well, an accessory means to be an accomplice, a partner, or having knowledge of a crime being committed. So an accessory to a crime is a valid charge under criminal law. There's two classifications of offenders. There's principals and those who commit the crime. Okay. So accessories are individuals who assist principals in some ways, are accessories, or they're complicit. So a way an individual normally becomes an accessory to a crime is by taking steps to hide evidence of a crime, holding on to information that they're aware of that could possibly be aided in the due process and prosecution of a crime. And another would be actually helping the principal perpetrator carry out the crime, or just having that good old friend mentality to have good intentions in helping a friend out, or whether he claims to have known what his friend was truly doing. So neither of these explanations with the good intention clause tends to function as a general legal defense in the field of criminal law. Okay, let's think about something just for a minute. When I get into this about Charles Manson, this is probably going to start making a little bit more sense to you, because I'm going to show some things from his parole board hearing. That's my intention. I want to show some clips from his parole board hearings. I'm not going to go into all of the other stuff because it would take years of going through all this videography. So I'm just going to highlight a few things. So in the dynamics of determining guilt by association, there's, in criminal defense and prosecution in the courtroom, you're going to have a debate. So guilt by association debate has raged for decades in terms of its fallacies and whether it is truly fair or not to convict or charge or convict someone with accessory or complacency. Hey, flies. So this is where the prosecution and the defense team in a trial, a criminal trial, that's where they weigh out who's really involved where. who's done what, and who does this one over here know, and what does this one over here know about. That's pretty much what it is. And then on the flip, you've got honor by association. Now, when I read the term for honor by association, one of the first things that popped into my mind was the good old boy. Oh, he's a cop. He wouldn't ever do nothing like that. Oh, that's the deacon over at the First Municipal Church. He wouldn't ever do nothing like that. His kids are good kids. They never would. Lord, I can't believe you would say something like that about them. And the whole time, it's that those people are believed to be individuals that are reputable because of the company they keep and because of the support they receive from their communities and their societies. So, another good example of an honor by association, or the good old boy thing, would be maybe having a celebrity endorsement. Say I'm selling a product, it's not selling too good. So, as a marketing technique, I reach out to a couple of really good people that are well known, that are entertainers. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they're a radio show host, maybe they're a YouTube creator that has a lot of good feedback, a lot of good supporters. You can see that they're monetized, they're making a lot of good money. Or maybe it may actually be a celebrity that came from your hometown or something, and you reach out to them and say, hey, I really want my business or what I'm doing to be really successful. Can you help me promote it? And so, because these products or services get a celebrity endorsement of a particular product or service, they admire that celebrity. So the more popular you are, the more admired you are, and the more honor you have in your followers being associated with you. So, me, if this was the case, and I'm speaking hypothetically, say I decided to run a scam. I don't do that, but say I decided to run a scam, and say that I do a 80% markup on something that is only worth like $1.20 or $1.25, and I charge $8 or $9 for it, and I've got bukus of product, and just because this wonderful hometown celebrity is endorsing my product, and I get away with it. Say I do get away with it. So now I go to court because somebody sues me, and because I've used this hometown celebrity, the judge looks at me and looks at who I've got endorsing. Well, there must be some good. I mean, shoot, they went out on a limb, and this dude, or this celebrity here, thinks highly of their product, thinks highly of them, or they wouldn't have dedicated so much time into them to help them promote their business. So that's another honor of association that we get into when it comes to a crime being committed and trying to sort out who and where and what's involved. Okay. So we're adults. We pretty well get that part. Well, in 2003, prior to 2003, there was a young man by the name of Joseph Pringle. And he was a passenger in a vehicle that was stopped, and I think it was in Maryland. It was in Maryland. He was stopped. Well, the car was stopped. The driver was stopped for speeding. So upon the traffic stop, the officer searched the car. Cop found $750 in the glove box. He also found cocaine behind the armrest in the back seat, and he arrested Pringle with the driver. and 2 other occupants of that vehicle. And despite all 3 individuals denying, another individual, there was 3 of them in the car. So despite all 3 individuals denying ownership of the drugs and money, they took them all to jail. Now, the driver of the car's got a speeding ticket. Now he's got possession and a whole slew of other charges. But it ain't just him. It's the other 2 passengers as well. So Pringle says, oh, hell to the no. That ain't mine. We've heard this scenario play out before. So Pringle was found guilty on 2 charges, possession with intent to distribute cocaine and possession of cocaine. So the court sentenced him 10 years in prison with no chance of parole. Pringle appealed his case to the Maryland Court of Special Appeals, and the court affirmed his conviction. They said, no, you're charged with it. You got to do the deed. So then he decided to take his appeal on higher to the State Court of Appeals. That's when the State Court of Appeals reversed his conviction, holding that simply finding cocaine in a car where he was just a mere passenger was not enough to establish probable cause in charging him with the cocaine. So the State Court of Appeals overturned his sentence. So it went on to the U.S. Supreme Court. So Pringle's case made it all the way up to the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court. They reversed the state's decision. I know it's kind of quirky, but this is how it works sometimes. So the court's reasoning for doing so was that the arresting officer did not violate the Constitution in arresting Pringle. The court believed the officer had reason to believe that the car's occupants had committed a felony by being in possession of drugs and money, and that he therefore had probable cause to arrest Pringle in the first place. So, quote, because the officer had probable cause to arrest Pringle, the arrest did not contravene the 4th and 14th Amendments. Maryland law authorizes state police officers to execute warrantless arrest, inter alia, where the officer has probable cause to believe that a felony has been committed or is being committed in the officer's presence. Here it is uncontested that the officer, upon recovering the suspected cocaine, had probable cause to believe a felony had indeed been committed, and the question is whether he had probable cause to believe Pringle had committed a crime. Well, they reversed this. So guess where Pringle goes? Back to jail. So, again, guilty by association got him sentenced to 10 years in prison. Sounds a bit unfair, but sometimes it happens. This is why when I do my shows, I try to stress, learn and understand your rights so that you are educated enough that you have moral and ethical standards in understanding the laws of your area and state and your constitutional rights. See, pardon me. Hold on just a second. Sorry about that. Somebody didn't know I was live, and that was important. So hey, Nano. So with the U.S. Supreme Court they reversed everything. Pringle went back to the penitentiary. So again, this is why it's so important to know and understand and be aware of your surroundings at all times, because just by trying to be a good person can sometimes get you in trouble. So don't withhold information. Don't withhold information. Be cautious in how you present it, but don't withhold it. So with Pringle's attempt to characterize this as guilt by association case, it left it ineffective. Now, there were some legal terms and issues that was attached to this information that I had received in getting a clear definition. So we all know that a felony is a crime often involving violence, regarded as more serious than a misdemeanor, and felony crimes are usually punishable by imprisonment for more than 1 year. That's a felony, not a misdemeanor. Parole is when an individual is released from a penal facility, either temporarily or permanently, before they complete their prison sentence, on a promise of engaging good behavior when they get out. That's parole. Probation works in similar ways. Only probation is usually initiated upon misdemeanor offenses, where you don't have to spend a long, lengthy amount of time in jail, but you can have a long, lengthy time frame to where you're heavily monitored by the court system. So that's probation. Parole means that you've been sentenced, you've done some time, but we're going to give you an opportunity to get everything straightened back out and prove that you can fully function and operate in society, because if you screw up, you're coming back to see us for a little while longer and get this mess worked out like the judge ordered. So now, a felony, a misdemeanor, probation, and parole is established by a trial or a plea. So you can have a plea deal, but it's what you're sentenced on, not what you've been charged with. The judge is the one who initiates the sentencing. The jury is what decides by reasonable recognition of evidence showing whether or not an individual is guilty or innocent. The judge is the one who throws the gavel down on how much time you're going to have to serve and what your options are if you want out early, on what you're going to have to do to make that happen. So that's how that works. So if you hear somebody state that, well, they were on probation for 2 years and okay, it's a misdemeanor charge. 99% of the time, if they mention probation, it's a misdemeanor charge. If they're on parole, that means they have committed a pretty hefty crime related to a felony action. And they've already done some time. They're just having to walk the fine line on whether or not they're going to go back or not. So I'm hoping to clear that up when you're hearing these terms in these chats. I'm not a lawyer. I don't claim to be a lawyer. This information is coming from simple research, life experience, and work experience. I'm just exercising a civil duty and trying to inform people who feel that they may or may not need a better understanding of certain things. We got enough evil in the world. we don't need to be ignorant to what our rights are. Okay. Now let's talk about old Charlie for just a minute. Again, I was hoping to avoid this case file, so I'm going to try and make it as entertaining, educating, and informative as possible without spinning from here to Halloween night talking about this man. So, Charles Manson was born in Cincinnati, Ohio in 1934, pre-World War II. Actually, he was about 11, 12 years old when World War II was in full effect. So he went through a depression, not a mental depression. He went through the Great Depression, and he went through a war. He actually went through 3 wars. No, he went through more than that. During his childhood, he went through the World War II, Korean War, and Vietnam. So he was a middle-aged man whenever he started committing all these crimes for what he was in prison for. So old Charlie boy here had a long list of aliases. He was known as No Name Maddox, Charles Miles Maddox, Charles Hanson, Chuck Summers, Charles Miles Summers, Jesus Christ, and OJC. Well, I'm glad he didn't have a YouTube account. We could never keep up with him in chat, could we? Well, he died in 2017. November 19th, 2017, he died with a heart attack. He was complaining of chest pains, not feeling well. They took him out of the prison, took him to the hospital, and he died. Old Charlie boy was a singer and a songwriter. He was evaluated and profiled as being an attempted murderer. Now, notice what I just said. We have been enlightened by this man's life as a cult leader, as a tool to keep us and detour us away from serious crimes. He's an icon in today's society. But the pathology states attempted murder, arson, rape, and thief. He initiated varied proxies in torture and ways to commit murder. He had a very vivid imagination. He would strongly make suggestive comments, tell his stories, manipulate the people that was around him and in his presence. And that's what the word proxy means. It's manipulation. So he would talk about torturing these people. He would talk about wanting to murder these people. And these people that was putting him on a pedestal was just eating it up. So this is how his modus operandi shows: varied proxy, torture and murder, arson, rape. It's documented that he killed 9 people by proxy. So it means he had somebody else do his dirty work for him. Made 1 attempted murder, 2 rapes reported, and set fire to 4 homesteads during his little reign of terror. His crime spans from 1948 to 1969. He received the death sentence, they reversed it and give him life in prison. He spent his life from 1972 to 2017 in prison on death row. But not the whole time on death row. He was in maximum security. He was arrested August 19th, 1969. And I said earlier that he had died with a heart attack. So, giving a little bit of more background on Charlie Manson here. Yeah, Mr. What was his name? Charles Hanson. I like old Charlie boy. He's creative, I tell you what. 1954, he was paroled. 1954, so he went to prison when he was 20 years old and got parole. Got out of prison when he was 20. Actually, here's where I need to introduce this documentary, because I'm going to highlight some things here. In 1955, he got married. His wife got pregnant with their son, Charles Jr. He was a rambler. He'd only work making pennies. He'd steal cars. And when he got caught doing that, he went to jail, and his son was born while he was in jail. His wife had drove a car that he stole, and that's how he got caught. So 3 years into this prison term, his wife divorces him, and that was in 1958. Charles Manson started pimping young women when he was 16 years old in Pasadena, California. So he was a real ladies' man. He had all the ladies following him. So then he thought, I'm really going to be a true leader here. And he started doing legal negotiations on charges of white slavery and forging a U.S. Treasury check. So in 1967, he got out of prison again. He wasn't even out 2 years before he had a harem of criminals following him. And if they wasn't criminals when they joined up with him, they dang sure got it labeled as criminals after they got caught. So I'm going to pick up and mute out for just a moment and share my screen. And I would like for you to enjoy this documentary for a few minutes that was done by Diane Sawyer. So these are very well-known investigative reporters. Doesn't look like it's going to let me play it. It's not going to let me play it, folks. I'm sorry. I've had some stuff going on in chat, so hi, Kinsuji. So It's really sad. It's really, really sad. Really sad. People, don't let YouTubers dictate your opinions of others. Don't let YouTube creators dictate who you watch, who you support, what you watch, or what you support. There's enough animosity in the world. There's enough animosity in the world. There's no need in somebody that has the money, the capabilities, the technology to just out and out try to be facetious. YouTube did update. I was actually able to speak to someone at YouTube a few days, well, it was last week, and they did tell me that they had inserted bots and screening some of the material. But being the type of person that I am, this is not all on a bot. It's really sad. Really sad. Really sad. And this is gang stalking. People intentionally going in to manipulate someone else's gang stalking. And I think I covered a show on that a few weeks back. So I'm just going to fill in the blanks with you because that's what you're here for. So Mr. Charlie Boy here, he's a piece of work, all right. A real big piece of work. So he loved playing the guitar. He was an entertainer. It just kept going and going. He was just a very wonderful individual, a real talker. And when he was in hi Jackie Blue, when he was in jail, when he was in detention centers and youth camps and foster homes and boys' homes and in and out of the reform schools, there was a cellmate that he had that taught him how to play the guitar. And yes, I said guitar because I'm from the South. So when he got out at 20 years old and he started strumming and humming, and he married this woman named Mary Bruner, and he moved in with her. Wait a minute. Well, why wouldn't you move in with your wife? Oh, that's right, because he likes to roam. Well, he's the kind of guy that likes to roam around. So soon there were 18 more women living in this one apartment with him and his wife. Hello. And at 16 now, he was a sugar daddy. He was a pimping them out. He was a rolling with the flow, going all out. So he began gathering more and more followers, both males and females. Well, he had to have bodyguards for his gals now. So all these people living under the same roof and coming together and building this big commune. They said, so apparently the landlord got mad at them and said, this is a fire hazard. Y'all got to go elsewhere. So they decided to move on. So they roamed off and they moved up into the Santa Susana Mountains. And the Santa Susana Mountains was set up for westerns and TV shows like Gunsmoke, Bonanza. So this was pretty much one of these places set up kind of like some of the modern day westerns that we watch. I think Kevin Costner's got a ranch set up like this, and maybe a few more actors where they've bought up a bunch of land and set it up. Clint Eastwood, I think, has got a place. But most of the time when there's not anybody filming, it's just a vacant ghost town. So they moved into this place called Spawn Ranch. What a name. not spelled the same. And this is where Bonanza and Gunsmoke and a couple of other spaghetti westerns were filmed. So, I just took a quick glance at chat. So this man, this overseer at this Spawn Ranch, was being taken care of by this caretaker named George Spawn, hence the name and owner. He was 80. It was an 80-year-old man. So he was an old man. You got this group of young thugs, and yes, I said thugs, and hoodlums and hippies, and they just come right on in. Now this is some time later. I mean, he's already been on a 20, nearly 30-year crime spree, and now he's in California. Well, going out toward California. So this old man said, "Hey, yeah, I can use the help. Y'all are some hardworking youngins. I'm just going to bring y'all. Yeah, that's fine. Y'all could stay here for a while. Just kind of help me out with the place, help me with the fence and the repairs and everything." So the next thing you know, Spawn Ranch is turned into an unincorporated city for Charles Manson and his family. So Manson had told the owner that they were aspiring musicians, and so he allowed them to stay there and do all this good stuff. And this other woman, there were several women showed up, but Manson also pimped out these females to entertain, very lightly way to say that, entertain this 80-year-old farm owner or ranch owner. So when they overstayed their welcome, they killed Mr. Spawn. Somebody killed Mr. Spawn. And then that's when they moved out to Death Valley and found a place called Barker Ranch. Now, Manson told the owner at Barker Ranch that, again, hey, we're musicians, we're entertainers, and we need a place to stay. So they stuck around there for a while. Actually, I think Barker Ranch was actually vacant. I think that one was the actual ghost town. Now, this all happened before I was born. So with all due respect, if there's anybody in chat that is very familiar with any of this, please feel free to chime in and kind of help guide me along. Because, again, this happened way before my time. So while they're at Barker Ranch, guess who comes bebopping in? I wish they all could be California. Well, anyway, Dennis Wilson, Beach Boys. He come in there. So he smoked a little toke, drank a little drink, tripped with the hip. And he said, "Hey, dude, I'm going to get you a gold record. I'm going to get you a copy of that gold record." So while they're there jamming, oh, Charlie's a jamming, and oh yeah, they got them a high. Oh, they got them a good musician, somebody well known. This is the Beach Boys, man. This is Dennis Wilson himself. He's a groovy dude. So Dennis contacts Terry Meckler. Terry Meckler is a music producer for the Beach Boys. So Dennis says, yeah, let's listen to these tunes, listen to these sounds. And so Meckler takes Charlie and the family's music and he runs off with it. Well, this pisses Charlie off. So Charlie gets all pissy with Brian. Now this is a time when we don't have cell phones, we don't have Twitter accounts, we don't have no instant contact opportunities here. So can you imagine? I don't even want to imagine, but I can just imagine getting in a stolen vehicle and I'm going to go find this sucker. Well, that's what they did. So Meckler scammed Charlie over his own material, scammed him on copyright. I mean, it was awful. So when all of this along with some of the members of this quote unquote cult, were having their own personal issues. It's just a small city, so kind of like everybody's got their own problems. Everybody's making problems. You've got people in there making problems for others. And it just kind of escalates and spirals. And when you add insult to injury on top of drugs and alcohol, this is brewing into something major. So go on and elaborate with the Manson family, the killings, and then capturing of them. So Manson having this very large group of people that were idolizing and worshiping him, Manson got on this kick about religion. Now, when I say this is a very large umbrella in a term. They're acid tripping. They're rainbow culting. They're toking the smoke. They getting the good shit. They start getting onto those planes, absorbing the sound. You follow me there? So Manson, he would preach about racial holocaust. And when he would start on racial theories, he would start with the blacks, because now again, this is the time where we've got the civil rights movement going on. He's been in and out of prison. He has witnessed, he has experienced with criminals of other races. So he's got this fixated in his brain that they're just bad people. So, and he decides to instigate some crap. So he goes on and he decides that he's going to name this grandiose event called Helter Skelter. Now, this is when he was in his 20s and 30s. This is nearly 20 years before I'm born. And I read in the history book some of the stuff that was going on. You got the civil rights movement. You got the Vietnam War going on. You've got extremism going on. And in today's world, a lot of people call those conspiracy theorists, but it's just how times have changed into getting into that. You got the extremists. I don't care what you believe in, you're always going to have an extremist. So they start listening to the Beatles. Now they're pissed off at the Beach Boy. They ain't surfing US sand no more. They getting on some serious heavy power trips. They're listening to the Beatles, Pink Floyd, anything that can give them that euphoric feeling of being closer to their God. Now, but his followers were trying to get closer to him because that's how he was projecting himself. So they go on. They create this little grand event, Helter Skelter. And they all create this from listening to this music. So he started spouting chapters from books, the book of Revelations. He started spouting out stuff that he had heard on the radio, stuff that was being repeated from these albums and this music that he was listening to. And then he started calling himself Jesus Christ, because he really thought he was Jesus reincarnated by tripping so hard. God works in mysterious ways. But I'm not even going to go down that brick road right now. It might crumble. So anyway, let's move on. So he's got these people believing it's the end of the world, and if they don't do this and carry out all this, and this is the way it's got to do, they've got to atone for their own ways. They got to atone for this. So he was subliminally controlling and manipulating these people. And it was seemingly most effective when they were doped up. So in 1969, these family members were told by Terry Meckler that he was going to come visit the compound. But he didn't show up. Now remember, Terry Meckler's the one with the Beach Boys. They're trying to work out a deal here. They're going to have to pay Charlie for his music now. So on the 23rd of March, because Meckler didn't show up at the compound at the ranch, Manson decided to go out and track him down again. And he wound up at the location of CeeLo Drive that Meckler had moved. Meckler didn't live there anymore. So Manson showed up at the home of Roman Polanski and actress Sharon Tate. Now, I've got a little ticker running at the bottom of my screen. Sharon Tate was 8 months pregnant with their unborn child. So if she's pregnant, it is unborn. So, from y'all can go and watch this yourself, but we all know that Sharon Tate lost her life along with friends that were visiting this home, and that included Sharat Khatami, who was a photographer, a friend of Sharon's, and a gentleman by the name of Rudy Altobelli, and he was the actual landlord of the house that was there. And Altobelli was the one that told Manson that Meckler had moved to Malibu. So on May 18th, this was in March, on May 18th, the family ranch was finally visited by Melcher, who came back to try and make good on all this, hear him sing, and so they recorded another album while they were there. Now Melcher, I think, is just stringing them along. It's like, I ain't your friend. Oh, man, I'm going to make this right. I ain't your friend. Man, we going to make this right. And he went back and forth like this for a good minute. Again, there's no cell phone, so there's a good actual minute going on here. So in July, the Manson family took its first murderous steps toward Helter Skelter. Now, they done killed 3 people. They didn't got the taste for blood. And they gonna go after this fool. They gonna make Helter Skelter successful. Whatever it takes, they're gonna do it. So this member of the Manson family by the name of Tex Watson had scammed this black drug dealer. His name was Bernard Lots of Papa Crow. That's an unusual nickname, but we'll roll with it. So, Tex owed Crow a bunch of money for some dope. And Tex scored this dope so they can get doped up to start carrying out their plot. You're fine, Jackie. So, on July 1st then, after Crow had threatened to strike back at the family, Manson shot him. Now, the reason Manson shot him was, and if I could show the video, y'all can better explain it. I may just drop the link so y'all can go back and watch it. I don't know why it's not wanting me to, it won't let me stream the videos because they're really good videos. Anyway, Tex couldn't settle the debt, so he called on Charlie. Charlie went out there to try to collect himself. To no avail, it wound up in a gunshot wound to his leg. Charlie got charged later with attempted murder. This is going on for several months. I mean, this is actually a short time frame of series of events and murders taking place with the actual Manson family. Everything else was done by Charlie beforehand. The theft, all that, the robbery, all that. So finally, July 25th, Manson packed the family up and they went and visited Gary Heineman, who was an acquaintance. Well, Heineman had tried to rob him and rob him. Okay, let me read this verbatim so I don't get myself confused. On July 25th, Manson and a pack of family members went to the home of Gary Heineman, an acquaintance, and he tried to rob him of a sum of money Manson thought he had inherited. After being held hostage for a few days, Heineman was finally murdered. On August 6th, one of the involved family members, Bobby Beausoleil, was caught driving Heineman's car with a murder weapon, a sword, and he was in his possession, and he was arrested. Now, it was later revealed that this is the man that Manson cut his ear off with the sword. Okay, so 2 days later, Manson told the rest of the family that it was time to finally begin Helter Skelter. Daggum, they can't get their act together. I'm not trying to be encouraging. I'm just trying to get you on the level of they unorganized people. So they go up there, and that's when all the haywire breaks out. So I'm not going to run my breath out explaining all this. We are all very familiar with Charles Manson. And Charles Manson is now deceased. But a lot of his followers are still living. And some of them are actually out of prison now. Some of them are living pretty well. I'm just hate that it wouldn't let me show a video. Let's see if we can get at least one to play real quick. Because it's 6:30 my time. Please play. It's not going to let it play. Maybe we get lucky. Come on, play. Hey, I think it's going to play. Yay, it's going to play.
Let's talk about better health.
Let's don't
if
talk
you ever
about
feel
better
anxious,
health.
depressed, stressed.
Let's talk about getting rid of some ads. And play. Get rid of the robot. Bear with me.
To ask myself, I don't generally talk to myself. But I guess talking to yourself would be all right.
He just said to me,
You want a sound check from us?
I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
I want you to give this question a lot of consideration. You don't have to answer me now, but can you imagine what it would be like to be interrogated by the SS?
I don't know whether I could imagine it or not.
Think about it.
Well, I know what their tactics are. Okay. Can I answer it after the interview?
There's no doubt about it, is there?
Can I answer it after the interview?
Very serious, isn't it?
Sure it is. Can I answer you after the interview?
No, you don't have to answer me. You can just think about it
I will.
in your everyday
Okay.
doings.
Let's talk about Helter Skelter. Bugliosi paints you as a small would-be pop singer, as he describes it, of little talent. How do you react to that?
Bugliosi looks in the mirror every morning when he shaves. And that's the only person in Bugliosi's world. Just him. Ask his wife. She knows it.
What about the accuracy of the book, though, Charlie?
He had the dates right and the names right, but he had a million illusions that had nothing to do with my reality. He was only trying and convicting his own reality. Didn't have anything to do with me. I've already been through all these prisons.
But he did paint you as probably one of the most universally known persons
To who?
around, to readers, people who read it.
And they believed it?
I don't know. What do you think?
Then they're not as good as what they read, are they?
But the book, how accurate or inaccurate is it?
I never read it.
Didn't you brief it one time?
I read parts of it.
Yeah. How did you find it?
Like I say, it was reflections of what he was thinking. It had nothing to do with me. Seriously, the Charlie Manson that you created, that's not me. That's only an illusion in your minds. It hasn't got anything to do with me.
What's the real Charlie Manson?
I haven't really been able to make him up. See, I've just been reborn again, see, and I'm learning now. I'm starting all over, and I'm learning. The preacher's teaching me, the teacher's teaching me, the counselor's counseling me, and the doctor's looking out after me. The guards don't bother me that much, and I don't bother them that much. They do their jobs and raise their kids, and I do my job and do what I do for my kids.
You know, there was a time a while back where when you got out into the main line, you ran into trouble. I remember Bobby Davis up at Folsom.
I ran into trouble?
Well, you got into trouble.
Who told you that? You see what I'm saying?
Did it happen? Did you fight?
Many things have happened. No, I didn't fight.
Where you fought? Where somebody come after you?
Where I fought? Sure, I've been fought many times.
Did somebody come after you?
Someone come after me? No, someone could come after me if they wanted to.
But did they?
No, they've always left me here. Nobody wanted me.
You hadn't had any trouble on the outside?
On the
in past?
outside where?
In prison.
In prison, no. On the population, no. I get along with most of the convicts. The convicts that get along with themselves. There's much harmony in prison, more every day. There's much wisdom in the prison, more every day.
Getting back to the book, what is this magnetism that people keep referring to? And it's been beyond that. People writing you, wanting to meet you, your people that you had in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
What is the magnetism?
Why don't you answer that question?
I'm asking that question.
Well, can't you see?
Well, tell me, what is it?
Well, what do you think it is?
Do you know?
Do you know?
Don't play games with me.
It's no
Seriously.
game. I know. That's why. That's why you're asking me questions.
Did you notice the gestures, the comments, the quick change of tone, the redirection? In the other interviews that I showed in some of my other others that I covered with people like Knowles and Shawcross and all those, as you're sitting there watching these serial criminals, the FBI profilers and local law enforcement that are trained and others that are trained in having these profiling skills, these are things that is very well documented so that when crimes occur, they've got a baseline of information. Yes, answering questions with questions. It's a redirection. I'll tell you what, I would like an opportunity if someone wants to come up on panel. I'm going to drop the link, but I'm going to ask you not to drop any names or any coincidences related to something that you're dealing with personally or something that you have viewed to be suspicious activities of crimes being committed now or possible crimes being committed now. This is the whole purpose of collecting information so that legitimate and lawful information is not discredited. So I'm going to ask you to please refrain from mentioning anyone's names unless you know for a fact that they already have an established case file, like some of the other serial criminals that I've mentioned with my other content. Please, out of respect, I don't want anyone targeted for any reason and being falsely accused of targeting anyone. This is why true crime has so many animosities. So I'm gonna drop a link. So I'm going to see if I can't fast forward a little bit. So let me mute out just for a moment. Just bear with me. I'm going back to him.
And I'm not asking you questions.
Okay.
You see, I don't need to ask you questions. I already know.
Could you tell me?
Sure, I can tell you. Do you have the time?
I'm here.
Where would you like to start?
Well, what is it? Go ahead and tell me.
What is what? Are you secure?
Charlie.
The government is the United States. The government has never been more secure. Never been more secure than it is right now.
Hold it, bud. Seriously, I want to know. All right.
Okay.
What is it that draws people to you?
Easy. Motion. Generating. Attention. Reality. I know. When you know, you just simply know. Jesus on that cross. You know he's there. Is he there? Is the cross there? I know the cross is there. You don't have to put me on the cross to witness for the cross. I can see the cross. Now what I'm trying to do is get back to earth so I can go out in the desert. I've already cleaned that thought up once. And you put another president in.
But you said
And every time I clean it up, you put another president in.
All right.
You know?
You said it's people who are in harmony with you. What do you mean by
The
that?
people that are in harmony with themselves, in the will of a child. The child has a will. You tell a child to come here, and the child will walk over. And you tell him to sit down, and he'll sit down. He's just in the will of the child. God and his children are in the will of a child. It's just as simple as the Bible said that you must be as little children before you enter the kingdom of heaven. If the Christians had believed in the Bible, then we wouldn't have all this conflict. But evidently, the only ones that are in conflict now are the Christians. You know, like they don't seem to believe in their own God for some reason. I don't know what it is. Maybe they need to see him on the cross again. Or maybe they should pray for him to come out of the sky in a silver platter. Or you don't know. I'm just here and you're there. And who is your reality? And where do you get your energy from?
Give me that old time religion. Give me that old time religion. Give me that old time religion. It's good enough for me. In my opinion, Charles Manson may have been a very evil individual in the eyes of society. But he is one of many that if people would just listen to what he is saying, he was just, in my opinion, he was ahead of his time. He was imprinted with a certain level of skills that many would describe as just actions of survival, fitting in, recognition, pulling resources from others. He was institutionalized. That's the only true life that he knew. He was imprisoned in a structured building environment, but he was imprisoned in his own mind. I guess you could say he was self-taught. And even though he did what he did, and he was convicted of doing some horrible, heinous things, that doesn't excuse his behavior. But those who have studied, continue to study, and learn the impact of crimes being committed by certain individuals, there's definitely a lot of similarities in these people's personalities. A lot of similarities. So I'm going to speed up the process just for a little bit. I think I have another video for you. Bear with me just for a second. I wanted to share his parole hearing, and then I wanted to exit out. I didn't want to make this a really long thing. I wanted mostly to cover some highlights of the profile of Charles Manson and cover the guilt by association, because that's exactly what these people allowed happen to them. They allowed themselves to get caught up in the overall belief of someone, and they allowed their morals and their ethics to be compromised and manipulated, and that's how they became involved with the crimes they committed. So that's one of the main reasons why I did this one particular show. So bear with me, and let's take a look at his parole hearing.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. If I could ask you to take your glasses off. Thank you.
Sir, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, we're on the record. This will be a subsequent parole consideration hearing for Charles Manson. ID number is B33920. On 4/22 of 1971, the prisoner was received in CDC pursuant to Penal Code Section 1168, violation of Penal Code Section 8 counts of 187. That's first-degree murder out of Los Angeles County. Their case number is A253156, counts 1 through 7, and the controlling minimum eligible parole date is 12/13/78. Prisoner was also received on the same date for violation of Penal Code Section 187, one count of first-degree murder out of Los Angeles County, case number A267861. It's count 1. Today's date is March 27th, 1997. We're located at Courtroom State Prison. The time is approximately 1:30 p.m. We're going to start by establishing voice identification by each of us, stating our first name and last name, spelling our last name. Mr. Manson, when we get around the table to you, if after you spell your last name, if you'll give me your CDC number. We'll start with Mr. Douglas, and we'll go to his left.
Mike Douglas, DOUGLAS, Deputy Commissioner, Board of Prison Terms.
My name is Steve Baker, BAKER, Commissioner with the Board of Prison Terms.
My name is Arthur Van Court, VAN, capital COURT, Commissioner, Board of Prison Terms.
Charles Millis Scott Manson, B33 920, and all the rest of them.
Can we just spell your last name, Mr. Manson?
MANSON.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes, Stephen Kay from the District Attorney's Office in Los Angeles, and my last name is spelled K-A-Y.
Stephen K. from his mother.
Okay.
Gary Higgins, HIGGINS, Classification Control Representative.
Doris Mate, FLEMATE, Office Assistant.
Victor J. Castillo, CASTILLO, Assistant CNPR.
Officer Edo Santos, DELOSSANTOS, Correctional Officer, CFP Corporate.
M. Martins, MARTINS, Officer.
Stephanie Hart, Hanford Sentinel, SGEFANIEHARD.
Don Menzel, MENZEL.
Mary Grady, GRADY, KCBS TV.
Sheldon Gajarian, GAJARIAN, KMTH.
All right, thank you, everyone. Mr. Manson, the purpose of today's hearing is to again consider your suitability for parole. In arriving at a decision, we'll consider the commitment offense, prior criminality, and social history, as well as your behavior since your commitment. We have reviewed your central file and the prior transcripts, and we'll give you an opportunity to make any corrections or any clarifications to the record. We'll incorporate by reference a statement of fact from the decision summary dated December 1st, 1982, pages 2 through 6. Then we'll go directly to your progress since your last hearing, the new psychiatric reports, and any other information which has a bearing on parole suitability. Any change in your parole plan should be brought to our attention at that time. And before we recess for deliberation, the district attorney and the prisoner will be given an opportunity to make a short presentation regarding parole suitability and the length of confinement. Certain rights that you have for this hearing: you have a right of a timely notice of the hearing, and your file was made available to you for review. You have the right to present any relevant documents. Do you have any documents to present to the board today that we don't already have?
Well, I'm not much into the clerical perspective of this particular chamber of file.
Okay, so we pretty much have all the documents that we're going to have. Is that?
Well, I imagine you wrote them. They're yours.
Okay. You also have a right to an impartial panel. Do you have any problems with a panel member seated?
No. In fact, it's better than last time.
Okay. You're going to get a copy of the tentative written decision today. That decision will be effective in 90 days after review. A transcript and a copy of that decision will automatically be sent to you. You have a right to appeal within 90 days of the effective date of the decision. Now, you're not required to discuss the matter with the panel. You're not required to admit to the offense. However, the panel does accept as true the court findings. In other words, we're not going to retry you.
Right. Good.
Mr. Douglas, any confidential information going to be used?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right. Mr. Manson, did you get a copy? Did you get a packet like this?
Someone offered me something if I would sign something. But then someone else told me not to sign anything because my name was worth a lot of money and they didn't want me using it as another economy.
All right, I understand. Do you remember whether or not the items that are checked on this piece of paper were the same items that they offered to you?
I'm not much at this book stuff. Let's see. What am I looking for exactly?
Just to make sure that you had an opportunity to look at a board report and your psych report. And all.
Oh, yeah, the guy offered that. Yeah, he brought that into my attention.
Okay, good.
But I'm not sure on the little scratches.
Okay, well, I understand that. Are you ready to proceed without?
Yes, sir. I'm here for you. Okay. Whatever you wish.
Do you have any preliminary objections before we start?
Well, yeah, I have a lot of objections, but no one's ever been interested before.
Okay. Do you have any objections to the way the hearing is being is being
No,
conducted?
no, it seems reasonable.
Okay, that's kind of what we're after as well.
Yes, sir.
I have any
Yes,
objections
sir.
to the hearing. Okay, do you swear to tell us the truth today?
Always.
All right, that's all I ask. All right, I've got some stuff to read here, so I'll be a minute. We'll start with offense summary. Says shortly before midnight on 8/8 of 1969, Manson informed his crime partners that now was the time for helter skelter. Crime partners were directed to accompany Charles Tex Watson in order to carry out Manson's orders. Crime partners were Linda Kasabian, Susan
Where's this
Atkins.
coming from? Who's writing this?
This comes from the probation report from when you first came into the system.
Oh, well, it's a little distorted.
Well, when I get through reading this, then I'll ask you if you can give me your version. All right?
All right.
And you can straighten it out. Anyway, crime partners were Tex Watson, Linda Kasabian, Susan Atkins, and Patricia Kernwinkle. Watson drove to CO Drive. A vehicle containing victim Stephen Parent approached the gate. Watson stopped him at gunpoint and fatally shot him. All of the crime partners then proceeded to the house and gained entrance except Linda Kasabian, who stood lookout. Once inside, they murdered Abigail Ann Folger, inflicting 28 multiple stab wounds to her body. Wojciech Frykowski was killed by a gunshot wound to his back and multiple force trauma of blunt nature to his head. Sharon Tate Polanski, who was 8 months pregnant, was killed by multiple stab wounds. Jay Sebring was killed by multiple stab wounds. On 8/10 of 1969, Manson drove his crime partners to a location near the residence of Lino and Rosemary LaBianca. Manson entered the LaBianca home alone and at gunpoint tied up the victims. He impressed them that they would not be harmed and that a robbery was taking place. He then returned to the vehicle containing the
I'm not taking up for Manson, but you can tell in this video that he is absolutely bored with the BS. If you're interested in the Charles Manson case, I highly recommend you follow you access where this source is coming from and go to their YouTube channel. They have a ton of information there. There's more extensive interviews with other investigative reporters. And he goes, I'm going to fast forward just a little bit, not too much, because his probation hearings, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that after what I said earlier. His parole hearings are very detailed, because they have compiled everything about Charles Manson's incarcerated life. I have to add all this commentary so I don't get struck. So bear with me just for a moment. I'm going to go back to the video. They're about to present what kind of crimes he's committed and what kind of infractions that he's accumulated while he's been in and out of other prisons, because according to what I've heard from the parole hearings that I've watched, this one seems to be more detailed than a couple of the other ones that I've watched. So I'm going to go ahead and pick it up and let you finish watching, because they're going to start talking to him about his childhood, and it gets pretty graphic. So huge trigger warning. Now with me showing this, I dropped the link. So if anyone takes the link, it's going to be a minute before I can get back to you. So just bear with me.
the crime partners and directed them to enter the residence and kill the occupants. Crime partners Charles Watson, Patricia Kernwinkle, Leslie Van Houten entered the residence, and Manson drove away from the scene. Crime partners entered the residence and killed Lino LaBianca by inflicting stab wounds to his neck and abdomen and carved the word war on his stomach. Rosemary LaBianca was killed by multiple stab wounds to the neck and the trunk. At both the murder scenes, the crime partners used the blood of the victims to write words on the walls. The other count, murder first, count one, case number 267861. On 7/26/1969, Manson with crime partners Bussolay, Atkins, Grogan, and Davis tortured Gary Hinman by severing a part of his right ear and causing a laceration to the left side of his face. Subject wanted Hinman to sign over his property. On 7/27/69, Hinman was killed by a stab wound through the heart, which was inflicted by Bussolay. That's a statement of facts, Mr. Manson.
As they've been presented to you.
That's correct.
Yes, sir.
Did you want to tell us your side of this?
Yeah, I've been wanting to for years, but it just, it wouldn't listen.
Okay, this is your opportunity if you want to tell us, as long as you don't take too long, because we're, you know,
See,
we have all
there we go. See, how long is the episode would be to squeeze it down in words. You know,
right.
We're talking about 25, 30 years here. That's not very easy to say in a few minutes.
I understand that. I just want you to do the best you can.
Yeah, well, the more confusion that people have piled on me with lies and deceit and ambition and all the greedy little things that they play their dollar bills for, comes back to the penitentiary that I've been in since I was a little kid. So I look at everything from a child's perspective because I'm still 10 years old, because I've still been up underneath the authority of the father since I was a little 10-year-old kid. Because when my mother got out of prison, she brought me over and let me loose with the monks in the Irish Catholic Church. I escaped there at 13 years old, and I burglarized a lot of things, and I went through a lot of hell coming to California to get to the situation that we're in here now. My grandmother was a First World War witch out of Kentucky with a long rifle. My uncle Jess gave me a knife and taught me how to use it. They gave me guns and taught me how to use them. They gave me sword and taught me how to fight in the war, because I'm not a Yankee. I'm a rebel boy out of the hills of Kentucky and Tennessee. I keep telling these people from California that, but they don't understand what a Beverly Hillbilly is. I do a lot of underworld things. I've been in the underworld all my life since I was a child. You make a mistake and cross me, I'll get you. It's that simple. Sooner or later, in prison, you learn. If you let anyone get that over on you and bust you up with it, they'll get up in your rump and take everything you've got. So I don't allow that in my world. So I'm underneath in the basement. I've got Barry Goldwater's picture on my mirror, United States of America all the way. I'll fight and die for God and country that quick. But then it comes down to where I'm not good enough for some reason to be on the Ho Minh Chinh Trail with the Viet Cong, fighting for liberations, the peace movement, or whose lost children are we helping here at the bottom of this pile of whatever we call this? You know, we got all piled on top of ourselves with thousands and thousands of rules. I get out of prison for a minute, I meet the angels of LA. LA's Angel Town. Back in the back, that's where we get down. You up in the front talking about money, honey. I'm back in the back up in the crack. She knows me well. I'm on soul. My Linda Bell is angel to these monks that just took their heads in San Diego because they're way behind time, underwater. We're dead in that nuclear submarine coming back from China with Ronnie Reagan riding wheelchairs on fire out through the paratroopers in Arizona highways. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. That's my daddy too, you know. But then you keep coming back and tell me I'm less than an American because I don't, and I've already whipped everybody 3 times. I don't have any problems with anybody. And you got me on PC, won't accept my word. I was Judge Older. He was Charles Manson. I'm Judge Older. I'm Tiger Man in the zoo in San Diego. I ride a motorcycle. I ride a motorcycle in LA. A bunch of straight Satans call themselves devils, say they're get down, say they got the money over on another edge of town. They got the Beach Boys tied up in their contracts. You can't get into the real estate because Pasadena is a submarine that's run by Jody Hoover, who's over in the chapel, who comes from Colombia with the drug cartel, saying he got money with 2 guns and he taking that pussy. I blew him to hell. It's that simple. Linda Bell, ding along, sing along. Mitch Miller, the movies. I'm Bing Crosby, hard as a hobo, loves the Roman fields of clover. I'm Gene Autry. I'm all those guys. I'm another children. I'm down a wave or 2 up underneath you. What you're doing, you're over flying with the eagles and the fathers of great lands, but I'm king on other wings and baddest motherfucker that ever did live. I'm terrible. Adolf Hitler was a little biology girl in the class over there at the University of Southern California. That's where the big eagles fly. Yeah, I know Fort MacArthur. I know Fort MacArthur. Chain of command. I understand.
Are you responsible for these murders?
Responsible for life itself. If God were to wake one Greek Apollo through the sky in those satellites, I've been watching them ever since Terminal Island, in the diamond mines of, what's his name? Jomo Kenyatta? Malma? Remember him? I was in prison with him.
Are you responsible for the murders?
I'm responsible for Scott in the Highlands and a bagpipe. And I killed a lot of people in my life. I have. I've done a lot of things that I'm not ashamed of. I got convicted for things I didn't do. And then I got loose for things that I did. I was everything that a man was supposed to be down on the level that I was walking on. I was a hobo and everything I knew to know, and came back on the English language as if they were my words, and that I had discovered this whole damn thing myself. And I was really Christopher Columbus. And then I went and asked the doctor what he thought. And he killed himself because somebody else was laying with his woman and he was jealous. And I said, isn't that silly? Why can't y'all just get along, love each other, you know?
Okay.
So is that guilty? It'll bring to history if you got one.
I understand. All right, let me go through your record real quick. It says as a juvenile, you were placed in Gabalt School for Boys.
Yes, sir.
In Indiana.
Yes, sir.
It was in 1948 for burglarizing a grocery store.
I think your time was a little off. I think it was 44.
Okay. Well, let me finish this and then you can correct it, whatever's wrong in here. Says you went AWOL from school and placed in Indiana State Reformatory in Indiana. Went AWOL, some other boys. Subsequently stole an automobile and drove to Beaver, Utah. Were arrested in 1951, convicted of the Dyer Act. Sentenced to the National Training School for Boys in Washington, D.C. Paroled in 1954. 55, Los Angeles, Grand Theft Auto, 5 years probation. 56, probation, Neal Island, Washington, 1967. Ukiah, interfering with an officer, 3 years probation. 68, South Ventura, reproducing or possessing a face mile of a driver's license, 1969. And that's when you came in for this. Is all that pretty correct?
Sounds reasonable.
Okay. Now, your personal history says you were born 1934, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. You were born in Cincinnati?
Right.
Okay. Shortly after your birth, your mother went to prison?
Right.
Then for a short while, you lived with your maternal grandparents and an aunt in West Virginia?
Right.
Okay. Rejoined your mother in Indiana upon release from prison, and later resided in various foster homes until you were made a ward of the court, and that's when you went to the boys' school in Gabalt, is that right?
I'm not sure. There's a couple other institutions in there. An institution in South Bend, Indiana.
Okay.
I was there for about a year, I think.
Oh, all right. So the rest of your juvenile life was spent in various reformatories and boys' schools in Pennsylvania and Indiana. Dropped out of school at the age of 9 in the 3rd grade. You married a woman by the name of Roselle Willis. And that marriage ended in divorce in 1956. There's one son.
That was her divorce. I didn't agree with that divorce.
It wasn't your idea, huh?
No, I didn't. I don't believe in it.
Okay. Says no military service. Residential pattern prior to the current incarceration was unstable. Admitted before you came into the institution, you used some LSD, some mescaline, amphetamines, barbiturates, but never got involved in alcohol. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
Okay, what's correct?
I ran the gambit of the street, everything that
whatever was there,
the children do.
Okay.
It's pitiful, isn't it? Wow. Absolutely pitiful. And what seems to me is that because of Manson's personality and his redirection, his body language, apparently this made people in the courtroom very nervous. So seemingly his parole hearings was a platform for him to try and explain himself. And we're learning a lot. I think we've learned a lot more watching his parole hearings than what if any of you in the chat have actually went and looked at some of the other things. Flies, thank you for putting the trigger warning in, honey. But you made a comment about stolen valor. No, this is not stolen valor. It wasn't stolen valor at all. This is the opposite of stolen valor. And let me explain stolen valor. Stolen valor is when you impersonate a military official. Manson, to the public's knowledge, never projected himself to be in the military, because in that statement that he made at his probation hearing, he's stating that he was denied that opportunity to serve for his country. He's in prison and he's a convicted felon. Military ain't gonna take it. No, he didn't. Okay. What he's saying is he was denied the right. Where he's getting his knowledge from and feeling and expressing that he was there with wars with generals. When he makes a comment in one of these probation hearings that I've watched, and it may be this one, that while he was in the reformatories, he's explaining that the COs and the people that was in charge in monitoring these facilities were people who had came back from the war. And that's happened a lot. I mean, I've worked in facilities to where when military personnel, they come back into, they retire, they get discharged, and they enter the work field on a civilian level. And because of their experience, we've got a lot of police officers that have backgrounds in the military. They're structured. They understand. They took an oath. Manson here is expressing to the parole board that he was denied this. He was denied the opportunity. He was denied being able to go in there and fight in Vietnam. He was denied he was too young to go to Korea. Well, not really, but he was in prison when the Korean conflict was going on. But he was denied the right to be in the military because of his background and him being locked up. And the mentality of this man, he's absolutely expressing and trying to hold them accountable on the level of being denied a lot of opportunities because they locked him up for crimes that he is strongly suggesting that, in his defense, he didn't commit. If they had never put a murder charge on him or an attempted murder charge on him, he would have been released a long time ago. And even in the late 60s, early 70s, see, the Vietnam War didn't end until 1973. And then there were still people in and out all the way up until 78. And if he had served his time just on the crimes that he knew he had committed during that time, he still wouldn't have been able to join the military because he was a convicted felon. But there was the draft. So you got to go back in history to see if he would have been able to serve at all. I just want to get that out of the way. So let's go back.
Did you ever get addicted to anything?
No, I've never let anything overrun me enough to get a hold of me. I've tried to understand what it is. I've learned from everything I've done.
All right, so you experimented with various drugs, but you never.
I've been looking for myself for a long time. I've been trying to find out a lot.
Okay. Is there anything else that I should know about your history before you came into the institution on this commitment that I haven't already talked about?
Well, yeah, I think what you're bringing up is really important. The other board didn't even consider what you're considering.
Okay.
And I appreciate your considerations in this area. Those were the days that set my mind to do what I had to do for what I had to do. I had a captain named Kirk who would get 4 other dudes to hold me on 4 points and take a big leather strap and teach me what he wanted done. He wanted it done. There was no in between.
Which institution was that?
That was Plainfield. Plainfield. That was right after the Second World War. If you remember, a lot of the people from Europe came over here and got jobs right after that. So that era of confinement is not equal to what we're doing now.
Okay.
It was pretty treacherous place in them days because we were at war. So I've been raised in the stomach of this beast, and I've been living and doing whatever I have to do. If I can live in peace, I'll run and live in peace. If I can get along with people, I'll get along. You know, I'll do my best to do everything I can. But when they mess with my music, or they fuck with my family, or they bother my dog, or steal my cows, or mistreat my horses, I'll do whatever I feel is necessary to do whatever I feel is necessary. Because I believe in George Washington. I believe in the Constitution of George Washington. I believe in the United States government. I don't believe in Abraham Lincoln. I never did. I don't like him at all. That's the truth.
Okay, thank you. Well, would you give your attention now to Mr. Douglas? He's going to talk to you about what you've done since you've been in the institution.
Good afternoon, Mr. Manson.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about how you've been getting along since you had your last parole suitability hearing, which was in 4/21/1992.
Okay, this gentleman here, he is about to go into explaining all of Mr. Manson's everything he's gotten in trouble for while he's been locked up. So, he's institutionalized. Let's just listen to what the man has to say, because he does give Mr. Manson an opportunity to explain.
Your classification score currently is 343. And of course, the first thing I reviewed in your C file was your 115s. And I counted 13 115s that you've received since your last hearing, with a total of 35 since you've been in CDC. Your last 115 was for threatening staff on 10/31/1996. And then you got another one on 6/21/96 for disobeying orders, 4/27/96 for disobeying orders, and 1/14/95 for male harassment. You got 9/25/95 for threatening to kill a peace officer. On 4/5/95, you got one for illegal possession of illegal business dealings with narcotics. I guess were involved in that. On 2/18/95, you failed to report. On 1/4/94, you were out of bounds. On 7/21/94, you had an unauthorized tape recorder. On 7/21/93, you had possession of a stabbing instrument. And on 9/22/93, you had assault on a prisoner. And then your first one after that hearing was on 10/7/92 for dangerous contraband. That pretty much goes over your activities relating to the negative side of what's been happening with you. I noted in further review, I noted one laudatory chrono in 12/31/94 for participation in AA. That's pretty interesting. Did you only get one chrono, and how long did you participate in AA?
Since 1954, when the Navy intelligence opened up Terminal Island for the government prison system. They was turning it over from a Section 8 into a prison perspective. I whipped everybody in Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, and they sent me out here on the coast and set me on the yard out there to make a new prison system. I didn't know what they was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. But the federal prisons are run like ships. They're like Marion, Illinois, and Leavenworth are run like out of USS Missouri and all them places. So being in prison all these years, I look at the government in perspectives of the world in a different perspective, not the same way you guys do.
Right.
I look at it from the patriarch more than the matriarch. The matriarch is more in the play of the world that's existing today. But in my mind and heart, I would want the patriarch, because naturally I'm a patriarch. I believe in the field of honor, and I believe if someone offends you, that you have the right to smack them in the mouth, punch them out, and dare them to come out and fight till, the field of honor is there,
Okay. All right, I understand. All right,
That's the way prison is run.
Yeah.
Well, I run that.
You have a chrono in there too on 2/1894 for programming per expectations and having acceptable behavior.
Yeah.
And then you turned in a wire or something. You turned in before your last.
Right, but see, you gotta understand, this is corrections. Department of Corrections, they have a bunch of men in uniform, and they're all.
I'll give you a tidbit of history here. Charles Manson was one of the inmates that helped better the corrections industry with the prison system. He was on the inside movement of making a lot of good changes to the penal systems on a federal level. He got in there and the gentleman here at the parole board just acknowledged that, hey, he was in there trying to clean up the facilities because they give him kudos. He was trying to look out for everyone. So this is a man that's been institutionalized the majority of his life. So not only is he looking out for his own general welfare, he's actually trying to make his home more livable. So, and that included everybody around him. So you got to give the man credit where credit's due. I mean, he was a smart man. A very smart man.
Always correcting. That's what they do.
Right.
That's their business. They get paid to do that. They're good at it.
Right.
There's a lot of good men in uniform that are making these corrections. Well, I'm in here too, and I'm stuck in between the cracks in the wall, and when something don't go the way I think it should go, and I have to stand up on that and make a point to someone, I've got to do it whether I want to or not. If the lieutenant comes to me and tells me, well, here's a restricted area, here's a broom, go sweep that, and no one's been down that hallway for 10 years, so I go through that. You can imagine where I got to dig up keys. I got to be all the way over with the Roman Empire coming back from the Greeks, because like Roman Polanski was very mad about what's that other guy's name that won that suit over there in Poland on this case here. This case you got here, this guy won a suit. Perskowski's kid grew up and sued somebody, or somebody sued him, and they beat me out of some money that had something to do with Guns N' Roses, that had a magazine or something they were doing.
Okay, well, then if that is all that was in your C file that I have read, and I'm going to go to the written portion of the hearing.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me finish. I haven't been trying to be good.
You haven't been trying to.
No, sir.
You haven't.
No, wait a minute. And I haven't been trying to be bad. I'm just trying to get left, I'm just trying to live. That's all. I'm not trying to be nasty to nobody. Okay. No, if you'd give me my rights, all this wouldn't happen. Now look at it, take your responsibility too. If you'd give me my rights in the courtroom and let me explain myself, you wouldn't do it. You sit up there and went, so then after a while I became you again. If that's a bitch, I'm all the way to Chief Douglas there at Terminal Island, McNeil Island. That's when the Supreme Court, Douglas was his name? Yeah. I filed some papers with him. I'm not completely out of the trash.
Okay.
In other words, I've been in the garbage truck before.
Okay. I'm going to read a portion of the post-conviction factors as prepared by attorneys. Subject conduct within the institution at the time appears to be improving. However, subject's sporadic outbursts would appear to indicate that he has made no progress to be reintegrated into society. Most notably, subject's recent CDC 115 of 10/31/96, and that, of course, was one relating to threatening to staff. The report summarizes by saying, considering the commitment offense, prior record, and prison adjustment, this writer believes the prisoner would probably pose a high degree of threat to the public if released from prison at this time. This evidence by subjects continued in custody misconduct since his last appearance before the Board of Prison Terms.
I'll fast forward just a little bit. He goes back and forth. What the Board of Parole is listening to and watching, Manson, he just veers off. He just veers off. And there have been very few people that have ever been recorded and talking to him that could keep him focused long enough to get information. But it always went back. It always would go back to him being mentally unstable to go back into society. Kind of glad he wasn't able to go back into society, but then when you think about today's world, it makes you do a double take on a few things. Before I finish up this video and close out here shortly, does anyone have any questions? Okay, I'm going to pick it up and we're going to highlight a few more things, and then I'll have a little brief in-broadcast music for you. Yep. Yep, you're right. Yep. Okay, here we go.
Received a whole bunch of letters regarding you personally. There's apparently there was some kind of a coupon in one of the magazines or newspapers about whether the general population wanted you to parole or wanted you to remain in prison. And apparently there was 2,072 coupons sent back in. And then there was also 257 letters that were written in your regard. However, I have one letter here that I will read, and that's from the Los Angeles Police Department. And it says, and it's dated February 25th, 1997. Says the Los Angeles Police Department welcomes the opportunity to respond to the pending parole hearing for Charles Manson, near CDC number B33920, which is scheduled for the week of March 24th, 1997. The facts of this case speak for themselves. The consummate brutality of the unspeakable premeditated murders for which Mr. Manson has been convicted clearly demonstrate his wanton disregard for human life.
Now, stop.
Okay.
Now, that's my point, exactly. If I were guilty of that, that would be true. But as long as that court stands, then that's what makes me what I am to that man's mind. That is not me. He gets his reality from that court. If that court says I'm guilty, he's going to agree with it. If a Roman Catholic comes over here and gets in your district attorney's office, Rome, mama, Rome. That's talking all the way back to one cross, and they'll do anything in the world to put one cross back in order, because if they don't put one cross back in order, they got Islam right up their ass from Chicago bouncing that goddamn fucking basketball. Sooner or later, you guys are going to have to step out in this hallway and see who this hallway belongs to. That's my mop and broom over in the corner, Jack. You know, whatever you guys are playing out there that's nice for you to play when you got the money, that's cool. But when you're down in a hard time, where you ain't got nothing but the mind you're mopping and slopping with, you got to deal with what you got to deal from here, honey buns. And when you can do that, then that's the penitentiary. I don't know all the things you know, but you don't know the things I know either. I don't disrespect you and take your rights, so give me my fucking rights. You can't fool me. You can't trick me. I didn't have nothing to do with killing those people, period. Okay. I've told you that all the way down the line. I wasn't around anyone when they were killed. I'm not saying I'm not capable of doing it myself. But I'm just saying this, I did not do that, and I could have proved it in a court of law.
Okay, that's on the record, Mr. Manson.
Yes,
Let
sir.
me finish this letter. It's very
Thank
clear. He must never be permitted to inflict the horrible evil of which he is capable upon society. The community remains fully justified in its belief that Charles Manson remain in prison for the rest of his life. Please keep this department advised of further developments pursuant to Penal Code Section 3042.
So even local law enforcement didn't want him out. And all the man ever wanted was to have his day in court, but he couldn't stay focused long enough to have it. Jeez Louise. Jeez Louise. Okay, so Kinsuji, you're right. We watch people daily. And this is how we identify possible criminal activities. Doesn't mean they're doing it, but what's going to lead up to it?
Murders. Mr. Manson told his followers to commit heinous murders, and they followed his direction, and Tex Watson took rope with him and hung Sharon Tate while she was still alive by throwing a rope over the beam, one of the beams on the ceiling in the living room. And in the LaBianca murder, there was writing in blood on the walls, on the refrigerator, war carved in Mr. LaBianca's abdomen. Between the two murders, 156 stab wounds were inflicted on the victims. The last murder he was convicted of, at the same time he was convicted of the Hinman murder, was the murder of Donald Shorty Shea. That was on August 28th, 1969. Mr. Shea was a ranch hand at Spawn Ranch who knew Manson and the family were up to no good and tried to get him kicked off the ranch, and he got murdered for his efforts.
Go ahead.
Okay. Besides masterminding these murders, Mr. Manson has been a terrible prisoner. At the time of his last hearing, he actually had 57 CDC 115s, which were serious violations. Now, according to the board report this time, he has 14. I'm not sure if it's 13 or 14, but that should give him a grand total of 70 CDC 115s, which are serious violations. His record is replete with assaulting prison guards and staff members, spitting on them, throwing hot coffee on them, threatening to kill them. Your heart really goes out to the people that have to work with Mr. Manson, that they have to put up with this type of conduct. He also has in his past, in Vacaville, he was in possession of LSD. When he was transferred from Vacaville to San Quentin, they found a hacksaw blade.
Did y'all catch that? Please put something in the chat if you just caught that. He was tripping balls in the pen. I'm sorry, but that's what he done. Ooh, Lord, talk about paranoia.
Concealed in the insole of his shoe. And he also, when he was at Vacaville, had escape plans that they caught him with. Now, that's just things that happened before his last hearing. Since his last hearing, of course, he's threatened to murder one of the guards. He's threatened staff members. He assaulted the report said non-prisoner. And I'm not sure exactly who that was, but he shouldn't have assaulted anybody. He was trafficking in narcotics, in possession of a stabbing instrument. Mr. Manson after they would finish their dinners at Spawn Ranch, would preach to his followers. And one of the things he would tell them is that there are no laws. There's no right or wrong, and it's okay to commit murder. Now, the fact that Mr. Manson is not following the regulations in prison is understandable because he doesn't believe that there are any laws. He is a law unto himself. He will do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. I found the psychiatric report very interesting, and I was pleased that Mr. Manson liked Dr. Evans' report because I did too, and I thought Dr. Evans had good insight into Manson, saying that he had a severe personality disorder, and the operative word is severe, and it was characterized by narcissistic, manipulative, and sociopathic features. That means the guy's in love with himself, he can manipulate others, and he is seriously antisocial. Well, that's the same way he was in 1969, and that's what led us to the murders that we're talking about today. Dr. Evans says that the prognosis is not good. Well, it's never been good for Mr. Manson. Dr. Evans also said that he presents a danger greater than average. Well, I would have to say it's probably 100 miles above average. And the thing I like most that Dr. Evans said is that Mr. Manson is a dangerous individual. I think that that's an understatement, that he's still a dangerous individual. I think the reports speak very loudly to that position and to the fact that Mr. Manson is clearly unsuitable for parole. And I would respectfully ask the board for the maximum 5-year denial. I wish it could be longer, but the law only allows for 5 years, so that's what I'll ask for.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Mr. Manson, do you have anything to tell the board?
Yeah, I thought the court recessed. What is this guy doing?
No, we'll recess in a few minutes.
Well, no, I'm talking about the court that we were in before. The court in LA, Charles Older was sitting in that chair before. Now, well, Charles Older is still my judge in my courtroom. In my mind, Charles Older sits in that chair in my mind, up there on that bench. So all the head people are still Charles Older to me. So when Charles Older said this court is in session, when he sentenced me.
So while this man is talking, he's laying out the facts. He's sitting there just trying to think of something to come up with to go back in time. So he goes from the day of his parole board hearing back, and this is in the 90s, all the way back to 1971, I think it was 71, when he was sentenced. So there's no level playing field with him. No matter what's happening in the present time, he always has to go back to his past to try to prove a point. This is that dissociative personality disorder, one of the traits of it. He spent all these years in prison. He's lost time. So in his mind, he's technically trying to make up for lost time. And the process of going day to day to day to day to day for 30-something years, he's trying to compensate. He's trying to mentally compensate for a loss of time because he's lost it, literally.
Me to the death penalty, and he said that the court was in session. What is he doing? He has no entrance into my life after that. People have followed me around just making up all kinds of things that's going to fit whatever they're doing. What somebody does in their world is on them, it's their business. The Kilgore clan of Kentucky and the gun clan of Scotland are getting together with the Manson clan. That's out of Bragg Air Force Base down there in North Carolina, Greensboro, North Carolina. We just landed some people from Scotland who came over here. And I told them they didn't give me my rights, so that's okay. You can keep them. I'll take them as I go. Because my fathers are Klansmen, and I'm a Klansman. And I'll march there for hell and wherever it goes to forever in that. So I could be wrong maybe in hell, but I don't think heaven would agree. Or if heaven agrees, we could dance that out in the desert, because I already came off Terminal Island Navy intelligence. I am United States government. Nixon, now Judge Older, there in that court to Justice Douglas. It's good to see you, Mr. Douglas. Beautiful. Yeah, Mr. Van. I used to work with him too. You know, you make me to be all the bad guys. That's okay. That's the game you're playing with Hollywood. I'm not good or bad. I'm just that guy that does what I have to do. You know who I am. You know me. It's the chain of command. Section 8.
You think you stood up for parole?
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. I got too many problems. Too many problems, and I'm doing too many things. I'm really involved in a lot of things. I've got a website that I'm working on.
Okay.
And I have a lot of other ecology trips that I'm trying to put into play. I've been given a lot of influence, so I'm trying to use it in a positive perspective. I've got some helpers. And I do go to Alcoholics Anonymous because the AA has always been a sincere friend. And it's always helped the winos, and I kind of get along with the winos, you know. So I'm doing what I can. I'm learning to start all over. And I keep starting all over, but I got these little minded people who keep dragging the past and keep throwing their judgments over on me as if the Fitzgeralds don't belong to the Klan also, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Well, let me ask you this. How long do you think it'll be before you're ready for parole?
I don't, ready for parole. That's a big word. That's a big step, guy. I'm having trouble adjusting out of S-wing. I was trying to get to a main line where I could get a little reality back in perspective. Don't you see what's been thrown on top of me?
I understand what you're saying.
Oh, my goodness, I've been carrying Linda Ding Dong across these little piggybacks on Ruby Poop. We're up with Mother Goose flying this whole world in the ozones. We got ATWA going on the internet. Rome was in play with the Department of Corrections on the CCs, trying to bring the feather rivers back in the desert, back into the...
He got his answer. It didn't pacify him. So he started entertaining again. People, I hope you've enjoyed this, because I know I was told the other day that I come off pretty boring, but my intentions with my channel is to inform, educate, and learn from one another, support one another, because everything that I'm sharing with you absolutely applies to today's world, the environment, our communities. These people just haven't been caught yet. And what Charles Manson has been spewing all these years, and all the years that he was alive, there's a lot of truth there. There's a lot of history there. But Charles Manson, in my opinion, like so many others that have established case files where highly skilled and trained individuals have made assessments and studied these people to better our law enforcement, folks, we got a long way to go. In my opinion, Charles Manson was a very profitable, and I don't mean profitable as in money. I mean profitable as in a play on a word. Profitable. Let me just type it what I'm saying. It was a very profitable psychology experiment. A very profitable psychology experiment. And I really hope that Mr. Manson found his peace, and he did so through the mercy of God Almighty. I really do. And I want to continue to, I spelt that wrong. Goodness gracious. In the world? I did not mean to spell that wrong. Still think I spelled it wrong, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say. It's hard to do this on StreamYard. It don't have the autocorrect. But Kensuji, yeah, we're seeing this in a lot of things, in a lot of cases. If we're following the true crime, what does Feather Rivers? Where'd you hear that from? Can you elaborate just a little bit? Let me see if I can find something on that for you while I'm here. Oh, hold on. I'm gonna cut, copy, and paste this. I think it relates to what he was talking about with cleaning up the waterways. Let's see. Yeah, he was talking about staying in California and cleaning up the mountains and the rivers and all that, because he was really into ecology and preserving ecology. I mean, this man, all he had on his hands was time. I mean, he had time to read, he had time to study. I mean, nearly 40 years in prison. When these people get released, they know more than what our kids are learning in school. These people that go to prison and all they have is time on their hands, they learn the law. They learn their rights. They have access to the state code annotated. They have access to U.S. code annotated. They have access to any subject that they could possibly have access to. And now they're allowing them to have access to computers and tablets, and some of them even are allowed to have cell phones. And it varies with state to state. It does. I've noticed that. It varies, but some of these people that come out of prison, they have nothing to do but look at you and laugh. I mean, some of these people have got some of the highest levels of education that they've received while in prison. They utilize that time. Right. Right. And when you confine someone in prison, and he created a following even in prison, it took over the world. I mean, it took over everything. It took over the other inmates' families that they were talking about. There's been letters shared. I have a dog in my neighborhood that is outside howling. So if you hear a dog howling, I'm at my office and there's a dog howling. So yeah. I mean, it just expanded and spider webbed out with what he was teaching. Now, what I did notice, I want to clarify a term here. And I'm probably going to get tagged for this. I'm just trying to provide an explanation. A lot of people, especially since COVID, and yes, I said the C word, they utilized their time when they were off work because of the pandemic. They utilized their time to re-educate themselves on a lot of subject matter. There was a lot of talk about conspiracy theories. There was a lot of talk about Constitution. There was a lot of talk about sovereign citizen movement. And a lot of these things have been flagged and tagged as extremist groups. This is just one of the downfalls in education and dealing with law enforcement. It's not a bad thing, but I want to make this plain. There is no such word or term in sovereign citizen. You're either sovereign or you're a citizen or you have dual citizenship. And the upper levels of law enforcement have picked this up because there's a lot of people that are overutilizing certain resources to fight against the corruption in our court systems. There's nothing wrong with standing up for your rights. I strongly encourage that. I strongly encourage you to get educated. But please be careful about how you utilize certain terms, because Charles Manson was ahead of his time. He paid attention, he read newspapers, and like I said, he educated himself the best of his abilities. And he had others help in his education process. He was absolutely right when he approached the board of parole and trying to voice his concern in having his rights restored. I totally get that. I totally get it. But because of people like him and how they express their rights, they get labeled. Please be careful. I encourage you to educate yourself, but please be careful and know what you're reading. Know how it should be applied, and don't get labeled this way. Please don't. It just destroys the movement for the better in being falsely labeled as something you're technically not. You're just exercising your freedoms and privileges. So please be careful about the terminologies you use, because Charles Manson was determined an extremist, a terrorist, and a very dangerous individual, because people didn't understand him. They didn't want to take time to understand him. And that was the unfortunate part in me in my presentation. This is bittersweet, because here you have a convicted criminal needing to be locked up, remaining locked up, and you have so many others walking around here that need to be locked up as well. This is just a bittersweet topic. All right. Anybody have any questions? Because I'm going to go into my playlist and play a little exit tune, and I'm thinking about going home and spending time with my family, if I don't decide to find a howling dog first. So does anybody have a song request? Because I greatly appreciate each and every one of you that have been listening this whole time. All right, this might be a good one. And the hound dog, you ain't nothing but a hound dog. I'm going to find that dog. I'm going to find him before I leave tonight. Well, here we go, y'all. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, and we're going to play a little. It seems to be fitting for the occasion. So y'all enjoy. Familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for the daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere, and their tears are filling up their glasses, no expression, no expression. At my head I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I ever had. I find it hard to tell you, 'cause I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Children waiting for the day they feel good. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Made to feel the way that every child should. Sit and listen, sit and listen. Went to school and I was very nervous. No one knew me, no one knew me. Hello teacher, tell me what's my lesson. Look right through me, look right through me. I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, 'cause I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Mad Thank you, everyone. Y'all have a wonderful and safe remaining evening, and I'll see you tomorrow.